Thank you for joining us today and the EIX, or Entrepreneur and Innovation Exchange interview. EIX is an online portal and resource for aspiring entrepreneurs, students, existing entrepreneurs, and professors. We provide a whole range of content, case studies, best practices, and of course my favorite, which is the interview where you actually get to meet a local and successful entrepreneur. My name is Dave Feldman. I am an entrepreneur. I help set up a green business incubator, the first on the East Coast, a speaker, and I work in the area of sustainability and economic development. Our guest today is Seth Goldman, founder and TEO of Honest Tea. Seth, who I've worked with for many years, is a serial entrepreneur, a political activist, and a real supporter for entrepreneurship in the Bethesda, Maryland area. He's also executive chairman of an organization just recently called Beyond Meat. So nice to meet with you today, Seth.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Yes, nice to talk to you as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Honest Tea, but I think the real point what we'd like to do is talk about you as an entrepreneur.
Sure.
You've done a lot of work in building up different skills in entrepreneurship, and our audience is entrepreneurs and students of entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So perhaps the best place to start is talk about what inspired you to be an entrepreneur. When did you first know that you were actually an entrepreneur?
You know, I think of myself first actually as an activist. I really am someone who, if I see something that I care about, I want to address it. And for me, entrepreneurship has been the path I've chosen to address those issues. So finding market-based solutions to address problems, whether it's diet problems of environmental sustainability, or even economic opportunity. And most recently, the trying to mitigate the impact that animal-based protein diets are having on our planet. These are different ways I've chosen to address issues through entrepreneurship.
Was there a particular time when you decided that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, not an activist, that you wanted to shift your career and your focus?
I went to college and I thought I majored in government, so I thought that was going to be my path. I thought politics. And I did work on Capitol Hill for a few years. I worked on several campaigns. And as much as I enjoyed that work, I just felt like it was a step removed from the impact I wanted to see happen. And that's what's been so gratifying about being involved in the business arena. And I had actually worked in nonprofit. And the challenge I saw there was that you're dependent on other funders, which aren't always based on what your success. It's what other people think. What I like about the for-profit sector is that the market can validate and reward you, and if it works, sustain you. If it doesn't work, you got to tweak it and get it right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you hear a lot about whether you're born an entrepreneur or whether you kind of grow into an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So whether you're an activist, in some ways that is even you use certain entrepreneurial skills. You're being innovative.
Right.
Is entrepreneurship in your mind nurture or nature? How does one become an entrepreneur?
I think you have to have some propensity toward risk, some comfort level with it, and that I do think is born. I know people, including people in my own family, who just aren't able to take the same kind of risks that I take. So that I do think is a nature thing. But then obviously once you're there, nurturing is your ability, and I think it is something that builds on it. The more you're comfortable with risk and you can sort of get through the challenging areas that build your confidence for the next risky moment.
Risk is something that an entrepreneur faces all of the time.
Right.
When should an entrepreneur know whether she or he can handle a risk, whether it's the right kind of profession and the right kind of place for them to be?
We have a fun bottle cap quote we use, and I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it's something to the point of courage is not the absence of fear, but it's more that there's a belief something is more important than fear. Mm-hmm. And from my perspective as a mission-driven entrepreneur, if there's issues I care about, and I think our vehicle, our business is the best way to address them, that gives me a lot more courage to take it on, because I feel what we're doing is important, and so it isn't just obviously there's the downside of losing some money, but the bigger downside is letting these issues go unaddressed, letting our society continue the negative health trends we're on, or letting our environment continue to be degraded by whether it's chemical toxins or a animal-based protein system that is having a huge negative impact on the environment. And these are issues, if I feel like I can have an impact on, then I want to get involved, and I'm willing to take the risk to do that.
I'm glad you use that as a segue, because the discussion we want to have is about sustainability and entrepreneurship, and you are very much focused on mission as part of your business. I would actually say it's the core of your business. You even have a book out, Mission in a Bottle.
Right.
Talk a little bit about an entrepreneurship and how that interacts with mission. Entrepreneurs in general are very passionate about what they're doing.
Right.
But when you have a social mission, sometimes it takes it to a different level. You're driven by something different.
Well, you have to start, any entrepreneur has to start with some point of difference, right? You're by definition going against established interests, established industries. And the only way to really be able to have an impact in the marketplace is to offer something that others aren't offering. And so for us, that mission element was critical, and it continues to really drive and define how we grow. So the innovations that we brought out, whether it's a kid's drink or a 0-calorie soda that's organic, we've been defined by how can we take our impact deeper. Just this year, we've now shifted all of our sweeteners over to fair trade certification. And so that was a huge step, cost several hundred thousands of dollars, but we knew it would further define the difference between us and everyone else in the marketplace.
Is the market somewhat different for a mission-based business? In other words, if an entrepreneur is looking to go into a business, would you recommend that they look at a mission-based business? And if so, what would they consider in doing such a thing?
I think it has to come out of a belief system. You can't say, hey, I'm looking for a business. Well, go into organic because no one else is offering organic. I think when you have an authentic belief behind what you're doing, it just creates an authentic brand message consistently. And so I don't think this is something people should go into opportunistically. So if there's something you believe in and you can connect those beliefs to a meaningful product difference, then you've got a business. And ideally, if you can connect and help consumers connect with it in the same way, that can also be impactful.
So talk a little bit about your belief systems. You mentioned it earlier about organic and fair trade. Honest Tea is very much of a mission-based organization, and it has a very strong brand. What inspired you when you first launched the brand, the organization? And give us a little bit of background.
So, the first step was just the fact that we were thirsty. There were just a lot of drinks out there with tons of sweetener, and we felt like there was a need for something with less sweetener. And that was both a personal taste gap, but then also recognizing that there were typical beverages on the market were a huge source of incremental added sugar in the American diet, and so could we help offer an alternative that both met somebody's dietary needs but also could help meet a health need. So that was the starting point. As we started to learn more about tea, we realized we could be making investments in these communities. The tea is one of the world's most affordable luxuries. It's enjoyed by the wealthiest countries in the world and provided by the poorest. So couldn't we invest in these communities without creating economic inefficiencies, but set up fair trade purchasing so that we would be not just making sure that the labor conditions meet standard or that the wages meet the standard, but we could take some of the premiums that we from the purchases and put them back into the community to help them invest in infrastructure or in healthcare or education. And then from there, we've just continued to find additional ways, other product innovations, a kids line that has a much less sweet calorie profile than the typical drink out there for kids. And so, all along the way for us, it's been how do we take the mission to a higher level? And fortunately for us, most of those innovations, not all, but most of them have also helped really drive growth for the company.
Talk a little bit about the growth of the company. Possibly give a timeline of where you started. You have a very interesting history. I've had a chance to be, I wouldn't say part of it, but I've watched it grow and seen, the organization go through a number of stages of evolution.
Sure. Well, I joke for that. For the first 10 years, we were really a nonprofit, and it wasn't by design. It just happened that for the first 10 years, we grew very quickly, but we weren't profitable. And so, in our first 10 years as an independent company, we grew to about $23 million, and but never really were able to make any money doing it. But it was still good growth, and our investors were supportive because they knew there was a growing opportunity. And then in 2008, we took in a 40% investment from the Coca-Cola company. They bought a portion of the company and helped us further scale the growth. And then 2011, Coke bought the rest of the company. And we moved from being, by 2008, we were the best-selling tea in the natural foods industry. Now we've become the best-selling organic bottled tea in the country. Now we're carried into more than 100,000 outlets. We just launched this year with Wendy's and with Chick-fil-A, carrying our products in all their restaurants. And this year we'll do over 180 million in sales.
So it's interesting. So you now have a established relationship with Coca-Cola, and it's taking you to some larger markets. Do you have any advice that you would recommend for entrepreneurs who are looking? Many are looking for IPOs, but others are looking for that acquisition for a big company to kind of take them to that next market.
Yeah.
How would you direct them if they were looking for some of the same types of growth?
We never set up the company designed to sell to a particular company. We just knew, let's build something valuable. Let's build something meaningful. Something we want to own for generations. And if we do that the right way, it'll be valuable to other people too. And that was really the main design. And I think ultimately the gift, with the fact that I still feel that way, I still feel like this is something I believe in. I want, I could, be proud to own 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. That is clearly what helps create value, and so I think that's the main thing. There were, especially in the during the .com boom, people were trying to design companies to flip. I just don't believe that's where you can create value.
Coca-Cola certainly is a major event, a milestone in the history of Honest Tea. Would you say that's your most defining moment as an entrepreneur, or are there others?
Well, it was a moment of inflection for the business. I think all along those first 10 years were really defining moments, because that's where we kind of created the DNA for the brand, and we call it mission in a bottle because we literally brewed it into the product. So the lower calorie profile, the organic, the fair trade, those are all embedded in the product. And then the moment with, each time we chose to go toward organic or toward fair trade versus toward a cheaper alternative, those were the defining moments. The partnership with Coca-Cola is what helped expand it, or what we call democratize the brand.
Mm-hmm. I want to go in a little bit of a different direction right now. No entrepreneur can build a business on their own. You have a business partner who you've worked very closely with, Barry Nailbuff. Talk a little bit about partnerships. And also, I'd like to hear a little bit about mentors. Who have been your mentors, and who have helped you grow your business and have given you the kind of advice and guidance that has taken you to this point?
Especially during the first 10 years, it was critical to have Barry as a partner, because there were so many points of risk or challenge or moments we'd never faced before. It was critical to have somebody who wasn't involved in the business on a day-to-day basis, who I could turn to. And Barry was a great supporter, and sometimes the right kind of nudge, saying, you got to do this better, or you got to push here. So he was a great partner. As we've scaled, our partners at Coca-Cola have been great partners and have really helped us. They challenge us sometimes around, could we design a package that could get more market receptivity?
Which is a good thing you want a partner to do. I mean, you want that challenge.
Yeah, you need that. I think the biggest mistake to make with a partner is to find someone who thinks exactly like you think. Yeah. Who brings the same skills that you bring, who brings the same network that you bring. Then you're not really expanding what the business can do. And Barry and I are two very different personalities. We look at issues very differently. He had sort of a different network of peers than I did, and so that's worked very well. But we were also fortunate, as we grew the company, to have a wonderful board of advisors. So we had people like Jeff Swartz, the CEO of Timberland, footwear and apparel company, and he was just a great mentor and challenger around how to create this mission-driven business and how to create a consumer products brand that was consistent and meaningful and mission-driven. And then Gary Hirschberg was another great mentor. He's been on our board for
He was the founder of Stonyfield
Farm, yep. And he, great model where he had built a healthy-oriented product that then moved into mainstream channels, eventually sold to Danone, another large food company, and he managed to keep the brand's vitality. And so how did he do that? What was the leadership that it required? And it's a different leadership when you're scaling an entrepreneurial business and then shift into being a leader, scaling a business inside a larger multinational. And so I've been very fortunate to I guess both attract and retain leaders and mentors who have steered me.
So you clearly have built a strong group of advisors and partners. I use the word sometimes interchangeably.
Yeah.
What do you look for, and how do you know if somebody's the right person to guide you and at that right time of your business as it's evolving?
Well, you certainly need someone who's going to tell you the truth. There's some who will just compliment you, and I always appreciate a compliment, but it's I almost more appreciate some criticism when I can understand that, and so especially when it resonates, and I remember more than once having a conversation with Jeff Swartz, and I'd sort of say something, and he'd say, "Do you really? Is that what you really think?" Or and I'd realize, oh, you know what? That's a good point. So that kind of challenge is really important to have.
What advice might you have for other entrepreneurs who are getting into their business? What kinds of ideas that you have learned along the way of your business that you think people either should or shouldn't do, or they should be aware of as they're going into their business?
Well, I think one of the key things is when you're designing a business, you've got to really make sure it's materially different than everything else out there. So, when we launched Honest Tea, the marketplace was at 100 calories per 8-ounce serving. And if we had brought out Honest Tea at 85 calories per serving, that wouldn't have been different enough to be impactful. Instead, we brought out products with 17 calories per 8-ounce serving. It's so different that there was no confusing our product. And if we managed to gain a customer, and it wasn't that easy in the beginning, but once we had them, they weren't going to go back to the 100-calorie drinks. They were our customer for keeps.
So in some ways, you actually helped define a new market segment by creating a low-calorie drink.
Yeah. So being materially different is really important, not just a me too with a little twist. That's just not enough in today's very competitive marketplace. So that's certainly one key element. I think the other one is to think about if you succeed, at least at first, what's to stop your larger, better funded competitors from just copying it? And so for us, when we came out with this less sweet tea, one of the larger companies that might naturally followed us was Snapple. And so for us, we recognized Snapple's brand position was a sweet tea. And so they actually did bring out teas they called less sweet or unsweet. And it just didn't really work because that wasn't the right expectation for their brand. Just as we shouldn't have brought out a product called, Honest Tea Sweet Tea. There's a dissonance there. And the consumers, if you're good at creating the right brand expectation, then consumers will follow, understand what the promise is and the proposition. And for us, the proposition was a less sweet tea.
How did you build that brand, that proposition? I've read your graphic novel, which actually is a great story about brand development.
Yeah.
And you didn't know right away. It took several steps and several, I don't want to say trials and tribulations, but you had a process.
There were a lot of challenges.
The brand is very important.
Yeah.
And
So, I think one of my favorite quotes is from Muhtar Kent, who was the chairman of Coca-Cola, and he said, a brand is a promise delivered. And I think, for us, we made this promise of a less sweet tea and then we delivered on it. And so as long as we're consistently doing that, every time you deliver it, the further you deepen that brand proposition. And so it can't just be we talk about less sweet tea and then we sell a sweet tea. We've got to be able to talk about what we're doing and then deliver on it every time, every product we make. And ultimately, when you keep doing that consistently, people get it.
Right. So the name of this program is Entrepreneurship and Innovation Exchange.
Yeah.
Innovation is a broad topic, and you can certainly innovate within your own business, but you innovate in a lot of different ways.
Right.
I think one of my favorite stories is how you have created a competition amongst cities to determine who is the most honest.
Right.
Talk a little bit about innovation, what that means, and what inspires you to be innovative.
And I think part of it is that's something Honest Tea's created, but one of the reasons I didn't personally come up with that idea, but we empowered our staff to do it. So part of innovation is letting people who are closest to the activity feel free to pursue their own ideas and occasionally fail as well, and not get punished for failing. You don't want them to fail multiple times on the same thing, but for us, we're always looking at how. One of my favorite quotes is from one of our investors. He says, lack of resources isn't a problem. Lack of an idea, lack of creativity is a problem. And so, we, by definition, by always having less resources, we had to find creative ways to connect with consumers. And so for us, that marketing campaign you mentioned is a great example, but the innovation, the products, we just brought out these teas. These are 0-calorie teas. And to find a way to still deliver a full flavor without any sweetener just meant we had to keep working at how do we bring different ingredients together. And so sometimes you need the discipline or the structure to get more innovation. So, for us, the discipline was, okay, 0-calorie. Now let's make a drink that tastes good. Or few resources, let's find a marketing campaign that can connect with a lot of people. And this company that I've just become executive chairman of, Beyond Meat, their charter is to build plant-based proteins that can really meet the same texture and sensory experience of animal-based meat, but do it with plants. The fact that in the animal protein is essentially fats, proteins, water, some trace carbohydrates, and minerals, all of which exist in the plant world in the same way, those compounds. And so can you reassemble the plant components into something that mimics and replicates meat? And there's a lot of innovation that goes on there to do that. And so I think, once again, just giving a structure and then letting people continue to evolve and iterate.
It's interesting, beyond meat, there's this whole new market that's starting to evolve right now. A lot of people are becoming much more aware of the food and the beverages that they eat. So,
right.
It seems like you're a bit ahead of the curve right now, which in some ways is what innovation is all about. It's really looking at things differently.
Yeah, it's funny. When 18 years ago, when I started talking to people about honesty, I was sort of getting some blank looks like, wait, what? Why would you leave an industry where you're doing well and go launch a beverage company? You have no experience. And then they would taste it and say, okay, this is very different from what I'm tasting. And I've gotten a lot of the same reactions when I've told people I'm going to be working with Beyond Meat, because they don't quite get it, but it helps reinforce for me this is the right moment to be building this.
Right.
If you're building something everyone gets, then
you're probably a step behind. I do want to go back to something you said earlier about building innovation as a core value into your team.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really important, and a lot of entrepreneurs, sometimes it's their vision and they're driving their company, and they don't necessarily know how to pass that on and share that.
Yeah.
Can you give us some thoughts to, what did you do that really helps your company appreciate and embrace innovation?
Yeah. Well, a core value of our company is empowerment. Well, it's entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship means empowerment, meaning giving people the opportunity to succeed or fail. And so for us, all of our employees, each has his or her own bottom line business that she or he manages. It means they have the right to make decisions, to take risks, and to be accountable for them, and to have transparency for it. What I think a lot of entrepreneurs, where they fall short, is they can be control freaks. So they talk about what they want, and then they try to micromanage everything. So people may hear words about empowerment and then not really be given the chance to do it. And so it is a little challenging to let go a bit of the control, but if you're really going to empower people, that's what you have to do. And once you do that, what I've found is people, they get excited. Not everybody, by the way. Some people need the guidance, or some people kind of flounder and don't know where to go, and that's obviously not the right employee for an entrepreneurial company.
Or you just have to recognize their skills and make sure you put them in a situation where they can succeed.
Right.
That might not be the role they take in an organization.
Yeah, that's right. So, but when you can truly empower people, you get the kind of creativity that we've seen, and it applies. It happens in our research and development of our own products. We see it in marketing, even in sales. We see people come up with creative ways to build relationships with retailers that I might have thought of had that been my only focus, but from my desk in Bethesda, it just would not have occurred to me.
Mm-hmm. So you defined entrepreneurship. How would you define sustainability?
Well, the definition of sustain is to uphold life. That's and then I think the challenge that you run into immediately once you become a for-profit entrepreneur is you're operating in a consumption economy, consumer economy. And the definition of consume is to devour and destroy. So you're in this automatic contradiction where you're trying to sustain life in an economy based on devour and destroying things. And I think the sustainability in business means how do you try to lean your efforts more toward the sustaining part of it. So for us, we make a product that is in single serve packages, huge environmental footprint. We choose the ingredients to be organic, which means there's no chemical pesticides or toxins going into the ecosystem as a result of how it's cultivated. But we're automatically, the idea, we would never call ourselves a socially responsible business because you're automatically, or even a sustainable business because you are automatically in that contradiction. And I think we can say we're doing the best we can to lean towards sustainability, but it's by no means perfect.
So if I said to you, what's a sustainable entrepreneur, would you look at that as, you mentioned the word devouring, but it's also about living and going beyond.
Yeah, you're trying to alleviate or reduce the environmental impact of what we collectively are doing. You could look at like a company like Beyond Meat, and say we're having a huge positive impact relative to the animal-based protein industry. But we're still a company that's moving around a lot of resources, consuming resources. So, it's not by any means a zero-based impact. It's just it's one that's better than an animal-based protein.
Mm-hmm. So Seth, you obviously have a lot of joy and passion about the work that you do. You can just see your eyes light up when you talk about your work. If you were not a CEO or as in Honest Tea situation, the TEO, what would you do? What other kind of things inspire you and maybe has the same entrepreneurial skill sets or qualifications?
Yeah. Well, before I went to business school, I ran a nonprofit program. It was a precursor to AmeriCorps, and I love that work. I love the idea of creating economic opportunity for people in urban areas in particular. The idea of helping to build community in areas that needed more of a sense
Such as
of community.
Bethesda Green, which is how
Bethesda
you and I have worked
Green,
together,
yep.
which is a local organization that helps green entrepreneurs, but it also has a community impact.
For sure. And then this other one that I ran in Baltimore was modeled after City Year, National AmeriCorps program. So I love building those types of things. So I think whenever you have the chance to bring together diverse people to sort of pursue an idea that's still formative, I think to me that's an exciting opportunity. It was one we celebrated. We just had our Honest Tea company meeting, and we talked about, this is a country where there are very few places where you can build a business like this and start with an idea and basically very little resources and build it into something that everybody now, basically can come across in the course of their day. And so that's a very exciting and empowering and invigorating undertaking, and it's something that I certainly don't take for granted.
One of the things I love about Honest Tea and even your your outlook is that every bottle has a quote.
Right.
And you've actually said that these are some of your favorite quotes.
Sure.
What is your favorite
quote?
My
favorite of all? Well, there are a few, but the one that is in the wall of our office in Bethesda is the one it's a Chinese proverb. It says, "Those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the people doing it." And that to me is sort of the defining idea behind Honest Tea, because there were a lot of people who said it couldn't be done. But I'll share another one with you, which I think is equally important and applies even more broadly. It's another Chinese proverb which says, if we don't change the direction we are headed, we will end up where we are going. Mm-hmm. So as I look at the health indicators of this country, we are headed in the wrong direction. The one that probably is most impactful is the average life expectancy. So the United States, even though we're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world, we have more advanced knowledge of science and medicine and nutrition than any civilization has ever had. When the UN released their average rankings of life expectancy around the country, we weren't number one. That was Japan. Italy was number 2. The United States was number 37. And so, to me, that's the wrong direction. When you have a country that has the means and the knowledge and the resources to live up to its potential and doesn't, that's just a huge shortcoming. And so can we use diet and nutrition to change that? And obviously it plays a key role. And so whether it's Honest Tea or Beyond Meat, these are enterprises that help move things in a different direction.
It's interesting hearing both of your quotes. You talk about, changing the world and doing something big. That, to me, is what an entrepreneur is about. They have an idea and they have a vision, but you've even articulated it very differently in that you see the world very different than is, and you've decided to take it and build a business around changing that world and making it a better place.
Right. The interesting one definition of an entrepreneur. I was with Steve Mariotti last week, and the definition he came up with was someone who sees a misallocation of resources. That's an entrepreneur. So, you get out of the subway and it's raining. Some guy there with an umbrella. That's an entrepreneur knowing people don't have an umbrella, they need one. I think that the world, in a sense, is getting along okay. I think that we can do better. It's not that people were begging for a less sweet tea or begging for a plant-based protein alternative, but to see the resources that were being put into sweet drinks or being put into animal-based protein, to me, that's the misallocation of resources. If we can redirect them, that can have an impact. That could have a significantly positive impact on health and on the environment.
Yeah, and those are certainly things that we need to address as individuals, as communities, as country right now. Any last parting words? Again, students are looking to go learn about entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurs are starting their businesses. You've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Help them understand what they can do to make their businesses successful.
I think one of the things we learned pretty early on, it wasn't that the world needed another bottle tea. The shelves were already full. And so, just because this product meant something to us doesn't automatically give us the right or the license to go and sell it to others. We had to make it relevant to them. And so it had to taste good. Certainly we made mistakes along the way where we had to, sort of the perfect mission-based drink didn't taste good. So it's not going to go anywhere. So you've always got to keep the consumer in mind. And it doesn't mean every consumer is going to think mission-driven and go out and buy that product. A lot of them don't. It just has to deliver on the basic proposition. It has to taste good, or it has to perform the function it is designed to perform.
They're looking for a beverage. They want something to quench their thirst and to make them feel good. So you need to not lose sight of what they're looking for.
That's it.
And then, adding another a value is what you've done, but in the process, you've helped shift their understanding
Over time. And if somebody wants to dig really deep, we have a 20-page impact report, mission report we put on our website, and they can learn all the details of our impact. But if somebody just wants a drink that's going to quench their thirst without as much sweetener as normal, we need to be able to just deliver on that too.
Right. And I'll put a plug in as well. If someone's looking to start a business, there's a wonderful book, Mission in a Bottle. Seth wrote this with his business partner, Barry Nailbuff. It is a wonderful story. It's a graphic novel.
Yep.
So once again, you have an innovative approach to conveying information. It really is a tell-all about your personal story and about bringing a product to market. So Seth, it's been a pleasure. It always is. Thank you for sharing your insights, and good luck with your next endeavor or your continuing endeavors right now.
Thank you. Thanks.